We may be branded as an Arsenal podcast, but today I think it's more of a group therapy vibe that we're going for. It's going to be a nice therapeutic pod today. Welcome to the Arsenal Bite Size Podcast. I'm your host, Clayton. Today we're going to be reviewing the Brighton game, which I think will lead into more existential questions and higher level recalibrating objectives and more. Where are we as a football club at the minute? Which sounds mental to some fans that don't support Arsenal and aren't as engaged on a day-to-day in our club as we are. But that's where we're at. It feels like a bit of an emotional morning. I think there's a variety of emotions doing the rounds, let's say. So to timestamp it, it's 10 a.m. the morning after we drop points against Brighton. And I joked about it is going to be a bit of a group therapy session, but I'm literally looking at the 5 stages of grief in front of me. There's denial, there's anger, there's bargaining, depression, and acceptance. I think I've been floating between denial, anger, and bargaining. I haven't quite hit depression when it comes to Arsenal, but I'm definitely in the acceptance phase this morning. And it's the acceptance that I think the title is done. Bobby, welcome back to the pod. As I said, it's a Brighton review, bit of a higher level talk about where we're at. And then I did forget to mention, we're going to preview briefly the semi-final on Tuesday against Newcastle. 5 stages of grief. Where are you at this morning?
Oh, when you wake up from a hangover, you can't remember anything from the night before, and you just have that absolute dread of checking your phone and finding out what had happened. That's how I feel. Just knowing that another set of drop points has probably cost us the league now and handed it to Liverpool, who were nowhere last season. It's just not a fun feeling this morning, is it?
No, not at all. And I guess to address the elephant in the room, I'm someone that right now is of the headspace that, I think the title's done. I want to respect the people that don't. Like, I think this is the thing. So for anyone watching live, like, I think this is one where, again, I joked about the group therapy, but I really think that's what this is going to be at the minute. I think there's going to be lots of media narratives doing the round. Some will be correct, some will piss you off. I think when it's happening like this and we're all feeling this way, it's important to kind of find your circles and just share your opinion. So this is a safe space if you're an Arsenal fan. So even if you're someone that believes the title's still on, you are welcome. Share it. We'll kind of dissect all the different perspectives this morning. But you kind of alluded to it there. Are you someone that's woken up this morning and think, it's over?
Yeah, just when you count back on the previous seasons with just the high performances City and Liverpool put in during their title fights, dropping points in any more than 8 games really cost you it. We're not in the years anymore where high 70, low 80s could win you the league. It's high 80s, low 90s, and I think we'll struggle to get to 85 this season. And we're seeing we need at least 90 to get there. So I don't think we'll hit that.
Yeah, so I mean, we were gonna go and do the Brighton review, but I think let's save that for now. Before I get into the question that I've got in my mind, we'll just shout out Uncle Mike. Good fucking morning with a crying, sad face. Gutted, man. Yeah, we are too. It's it's just shit, isn't it? And I think the question I wanted to ask is, before we touch on the specific game and the lineup and everything that's going on, what do you think has happened this season? Like, I've got my kind of opinions on everything, but what do you think has led to us getting here? Because I think rewinding to pre-season, expectations were a similar campaign to the last 2 years, right? Like, points tally-wise. You can never control whether you win the league, but points tally-wise, I think we were all fairly confident we could put up 84 points minimum. So what do you think has happened to get to the point where this morning, on the start of the new year, we're saying we think the league's done?
I think towards the end of last season, we had all of the luck that we needed just to get into the title fight. We're on the exact same number of points from the exact same number of games we were this time last season. We went on a phenomenal run after that, obviously only dropping points to Villa and City. We didn't get any injuries. Obviously, results went our way. There was probably plenty of referee decisions, but obviously they were ruled out by the fact that they won every game. And I think we're just now getting that negative balance back into our season, where we're getting all of the injuries we didn't get last season. Obviously, that then affects the style of play. And then, as Mike's just said, we've got the PGMOL doing everything they can to make sure we're not in the title fight. So I think we're just getting the balance of luck that we had a bit towards the end of last season.
Yeah, I think that's bang on the money, to be honest. You're right. Like, we did have a large swing of injury luck the last 2 years. I know we lost Saliba in the run-in in the campaign before last, but that was towards the run-in, right? And then you got injured at the same time. Sorry, go on. You were going to say something.
And it's unlike the season where we lost Saliba, we're at the point now where we probably do have good enough backups that can come in and maybe not be of the same quality, but try and maintain a level that would keep us in a title fight. Obviously, it's not a drop off that we had to Rob Holden since he's left. Obviously, he's not played a game, but we're getting the injuries, and those players whose backups are there, they're also injured at the exact same time, and that's kind of where the look is at the season. It's we're going with third options instead of second options and first options in quite a lot of games this season.
Yeah, that's it for me. I think I'm trying to think how to put this into words. Like, if I asked any other club, let's just say that whatever their equivalent is of Saliba, Odegaard, Rice, Saka, and the defensive unit, if I asked a fan of another title challenging team, do you think your team would cope with the same defensive injuries we had in the first third of the season? Because it was like, it wasn't just bang, our whole back four's out. It was like one component was out and then we had to reshuffle, and then someone would come back and then someone else would go out. And I feel like in the defensive unit, we haven't been able to play our first choice back four for a consecutive period at all. I'm sure at one point,
one game possibly I can think of where we've actually had the starting back four, and then after that, one of them's always been out for a variety of reasons.
I can't remember where I saw this to like fact check it, but I'm sure I saw somewhere that after 15 games, we'd played 9 different back fours out of those 15 games. And like, I know to some people, this may sound like excuses. This is me trying to objectify what I think has happened, because I don't think we've become a bad team overnight. I think there's been a domino effect which has caused us to get to this point, and I'm trying to, in my mind, explain what I think those dominoes are, and then feel free to disagree, shout at me and stuff, but this is just where my head's at. I think, going back to that, if I asked an opposition fan, do you think you'd cope with the sequence of injuries we had in our defensive unit, the knock-on impact of the red cards to Declan Rice and Saliba, and the impact that had in the next games in who we had to play, combined with the context of who was missing already in that period? I then combine that with the fact that we dropped points in the games with the red cards, where I'm pretty confident we would have won those games with 11 men in Brighton and City. I think it was Brighton and City. I think we arrived in the Bournemouth game, and the Bournemouth game, don't get me wrong, I thought we were playing awful before the red anyway, but it's one that it completely dictates the outcome of that game. Then I think it's a combination of that. We then lose our captain for 2 months. We then lose our best player for minimum 2 months. And I just think if you contextualize all of that, put it into a box and compartmentalize that, and you ask someone honestly, if your equivalents in your team are of that level, do you think you'd still maintain a league title challenge? I don't know, and I think if anything, it's credit to the level we're at and the level the manager's at that we've still kind of assumed we can go for it. And I don't know. Yeah, like I said, I'm more than open to being shot at here if people think that sounds like excuses. I think there's definitely, in my eyes, there's elements outside of our control that we've just been fucked. And there are elements in our control that I think we can do better. But I think we're operating on a fairly small squad, all things considered, at the minute. And I don't know, I think it's got to a point where those dominoes have just taken a bit of a toll. The players look a bit burnt out, and we look null and void of any alternatives. And that is maybe where we can take control and look at squad planning. Can the manager do stuff different tactically? But that's kind of where my head is at. And like, to be honest, it's one of them where I still believe fully fit squads, Liverpool, City, Arsenal, let's just include Chelsea in there, I think we're the best squad in this league. I think we're just so far removed from that idea because we haven't had a fully fit squad almost all season. But that's kind of where my head's at. What do you think of that?
I feel exactly the same, and I think it was not last season, but was it the season before where Liverpool obviously ended up having to buy Nat Phillips, and so Tsimikas broke in, where they just had bits of their back four ravaged and were having to buy 2 or 3 players in the January. Probably don't have it that bad, but they dropped off massively, and obviously struggled to get into a top 4 fight, never mind remain in a title fight. And we haven't been good, we haven't looked well, and obviously we're accepting this morning of where we're at in terms of the title challenge. But we're feeling this way after 3 draws and a run of wins rather than any defeats in that, and kind of shows just how well the squad has managed to grind out some results despite the challenges it's faced. But yeah, just a shame that there's been so many draws in that run.
You make a really good point about Liverpool and that kind of season of injury. So in the 21-22 campaign, they finished second on 92 points. City won that on 93. The next season, they actually finished fifth on 67 points. And now I might be confusing campaigns here, but I remember there was one season where like Van Dijk got injured. It may be the same season you were talking about.
The
Was it that one?
Challenge, yeah.
Yes. And was that the year where Alisson went and scored a header against? Was that a few? Yeah, I can't remember that one. But there was a year where I remember Alisson scored a header to like get them in the top 4 or something. That may have been the 2021 season. But either way, Liverpool, I think, outside of Man City, have been the most consistent challengers at the top level for years, right? Even they had seasons where I wouldn't say they capitulated, but yeah, 5th, 3rd in there. Like, I think the level we're operating at, and we have been for the last 2 years, has blown our minds, but we've become accustomed to that. So, of course, when our expectations are we're going to do that this season, regardless of the context, it's going to piss you off. You're going to feel disengaged from it. And I just think there's 2 ways you can process things, right? One is you just feel your feelings, like you're pissed off, you're angry, that's fine. But I do think it's important to kind of objectively analyze things like, why has this happened? Because I still maintain what I just said a few minutes ago. We haven't just become a bad team overnight. There are concerns, of course. But in terms of the bigger picture, there'll be people that be screaming, like, if we don't win a trophy this year, Arteta has to go. I don't see it that way. And maybe I'm just... I don't know, maybe I'm in a cuckoo land or something, but I think I'm very patient with this. I think as long as he is in charge, granted he has some flaws, I think with a fully fit squad, we are still capable under this manager, this management structure, of putting together a campaign of 85 points minimum. I just think we haven't had the injuries on our side to do that. And I think we're left with a squad now of what's available that is probably more similar to a top 3 team rather than a title challenging team. And I think working with what we've got, and yeah, it's just a domino effect really for me. I think it's just completely taken the wind out of our sails. And I guess it comes now onto what do we aim for this season? My headspace right now is kind of just try and take it as like, I think the title's done, but try and take it close as you can. Try and get top 2. And go for the cups. I still think we'll be short in the Champions League because of what I've said previously about our kind of attacking options and lack of threat. But for me, it's just solidify top 2 and go hell for leather in the cups. What about you?
Yeah, just to carry on from what you were saying about the disappointment, I think what probably hurts more is seeing just how City have dropped off this season and knowing that if this had been last season or the season before, we would have a Premier League title, and this should have been our season to capitalise on their drop off. And Liverpool were nowhere last season, and now they're the ones doing it. If it had been City at the top of the league, potentially 9 points clear of us, I don't think would have been disappointed with the amount of injuries we've had and would have been more accepting of, okay, it's City's juggernaut, they're already ahead of us, but it's a team who weren't expecting to be in a title fight with us. That's pipping us to the post, and City's nowhere to be found. But yeah, I agree. I can't wrap my head around anyone blaming Arteta for or wanting him out after drawing 3 games and that being the only drop points since the start of November, obviously since the Bournemouth game.
I think, yeah, that's the weird thing. Like, it's why I kind of touched on fans from outside of Arsenal probably won't understand the level of emotion we're feeling. But yeah, the last defeat was away to Newcastle, 2nd of November. And okay, there's been a couple drop points in there. Chelsea away, Fulham away, Everton home, Brighton away, obviously yesterday. But it's a sea of green in there in terms of results and output amongst those grey draws. But I think there's just been that kind of underlying theme and performance, right? But I'm scrolling through our results so far this season, and I think it's easy to forget the timeline of events sometimes. So like, season started against Wolves, we won back-to-back 2-0, Wolves at home, Villa away. Brighton, that was the 3rd game of the season when that red card happened. That's how early the kind of variance started. Then Tottenham away, I want to say, was that the first game without Odegaard that we went and won? I'm just
Possibly,
checking the
yes.
lineup. Yeah, it
Yeah, was.
Yeah, that was the fourth game of the season. I think sometimes we forget how early on these things were happening, and so this domino effect started so early.
Trossard red card was only a couple of games after this Tottenham game as well.
It was. Sorry, which one did you say? Trossard.
Trossard's red
Yeah,
card as
so
well.
that was the next league game after the Tottenham one. Yeah, so it's been this on the preview with Tom, the Brentford fan. He spoke about in the Brentford context, like they've just struggled for momentum this season. It's like they kind of look like there's green shoots, then there's injuries, and it's felt the exact same for us. And I had to remind myself, it started in fucking match day 3. I think sometimes, like, again, I'm not someone that's going to tell people how to feel. I think opinions are opinions, perspectives are perspectives, which are based on so many things on how you view life and stuff. But my perspective right now is I think the variance has been disgustingly against us. And I'm repeating myself. I think it speaks volumes to the level that we think we're capable of with this manager, with this group, that we even thought we could mount a title challenge. And it's only now that we're starting to come to that agreement that it's over. Mike's in the chat and just added a couple more that I've missed out. Marino got injured in his first training session. That's so true. And I want to say that was around the time that we lost Declan Rice to his red card. So Marino, who we've all got dividing opinions on how he's done, but still at the time, who knows how it would have gone if he made his debut in the North London derby without Declan. Or I may have that wrong if it was the timeline there, but either way, it was around the time we lost Rice. Marino probably would have deputized. He was out injured in his first training session. We missed Jesus through injury as well. And Ben White, like, I know I kind of categorized the defense as a whole, but it's like losing Tomiyasu, meaning that when we've lost suspended Timber, we've had to put Partey, who's the fourth choice right back there. It's mind blowing. It's absolutely mind blowing. And I think this is where, again, it may sound like excuses to people. In my head, this is me trying to understand logically what has happened to arrive in this scenario. And I think if any of this resonates with you, like, just find your space to kind of dissect these things with your people, because the media are going to go with the general narratives where they've not been as engaged in the detail like we are with our club. But yeah, have you got any more on that before we look to turn to what actually happened in the game yesterday?
I know, and it just probably the only thing I'll add is what Mike just said with Jesus' injury. We also get him back into form at a time, obviously, when we're scraping players together. And just imagine if I had a full first 11 with Jesus looking like he's back to his first season's best with us, and it's just a lot of dominoes have obviously impacted the season.
The other one I want to mention, the fucking Liverpool game at home, the 2-2. Like, we were absolutely battering them in that first half. We were all over them, and I still maintain that if Gabriel and or Timber didn't have to go off in that second half, we win that game. We finished that game with, I can't remember what the back four was, but it had Kiwior in there. It had Miles Lewis-Skelly, who I think was just being integrated into the first team. I want to say Partey was right back, maybe.
Yes.
And Ben White was centre back in that. Like, even that, the timing of that. Sorry, go on.
And the goal disallowed at the end for a Liverpool player not jumping for the ball and Calafiori beating him in the air, but they said he was.
I can't even remember that, to be honest.
Yeah, Calafiori goes up with the head on the edge of their box, obviously goes over the top of their player, gets through, and Havertz hits the post, and Jesus nods in, and they rule it out for a foul for the Calafiori challenge, and that was just.
I can't remember that.
Yeah, because everyone remembers obviously Kiwior coming on for Gabriel and then Salah going through, but they forget we actually scored a winner right at the end that got ruled out as well. So
yeah, it's just
a lot of little things.
Yeah, that's it. And like, in my mind, again, I think everything almost can be explained. I still think there's percentages in there that we can take accountability for and improve on things within our control. But fuck me, I think it's an interesting take to not take into account any of that stuff at all. But yeah, let's go on and look at yesterday, because despite the shit mood, I think there's one shining light, isn't there? And like, it's nice to see Ethan Nwaneri kind of get another goal. He's got his second goal now. I think I saw was it Match of the Day or Sky Sports a graphic about Premier League goals before the age of 18, and there's the likes of Rooney in there, obviously leading the way, Michael Owen. There's some people like Makeda who we hope Nwaneri doesn't replicate career-wise, but mixed performance, I think, but it was nice to see him get another start, get his goal. It's a shame it looks like we've lost him as well through injury, but yeah, lineup was Raya, Partey right back, Saliba, Gabriel, Calafiori, midfield three of Jorginho, Rice, Marino, and then the front three of Nwaneri, Jesus, Trossard. What was your reaction when you saw the lineup drop?
Honestly, dread. As soon as I seen the lineup, a couple of my mates were obviously sharing their accumulators in the chat and stuff, and they were all like, "I'm just waiting on Arsenal. What do I do?" And I was like, "I've just seen the team cash out. I'm not confident going away." But at home might have been a bit different. But I just said, "Look, going away to Brighton, who we drew against last time, just cash out." They didn't listen. But yeah, I wasn't feeling too confident. It just felt like a game where it was going to be like a grind out draw, and obviously that's how I ended up.
Yeah, I was the exact same, and I think my exact reaction was the same as yours. It was the midfield three, and obviously when the lineup dropped, I didn't have the context that we now have on. Oh, Odegaard was ill; he hadn't trained at all. Who else? Oh, Havertz not in the squad. Like we now know, he's still. Sorry,
I think he was the bigger miss. So especially with the solution at right wing being Martinelli and Ethan, two players that like to go around the outside rather than cut inside like Saka does, and then obviously cut back or cross in. Havertz would do a lot better with that kind of obviously ball into the box, and I think that's probably the biggest piece that was missing for me when we've been playing Martinelli and Ethan there on the right.
Yeah, agree. And yeah, I think the midfield three, straight away, all I thought of was that Bournemouth game where I think it was maybe Partey instead of Jorginho there, but it was Rice, Marino, and then one of Jorginho, Partey. Can't remember who, but it was the game where it just didn't look like it worked. And okay, fair enough. In this game, it was Marino on the left, Rice on the right. I think in the Bournemouth game, it was the other way round, and it just looked a bit lopsided. But as soon as I saw that, I just thought, where is the creativity? And it just felt like it was going to be a game of ugliness and like transitions and driving and stuff. And I think that's kind of how it panned out. Performance-wise, want to get your thoughts on Nwaneri actually, because I personally thought he struggled a bit. I thought he did really well for his goal, but I thought he is kind of.
I thought he played his age.
Yeah, like the choices he made in possession sometimes were a bit questionable, but I don't know. Like you said, he played his age. Like that's to be expected, right?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I thought you could tell he was confident and he was willing to run with players and take them on. As you'd expect a young player to be, wanting to prove himself. But yeah, his decision making at times and some of the passes he made, and obviously he lost the ball quite a number of times in his dribbles. But some stats that you would accept from a high dribbling player is that he is going to lose some battles. But I think it was positive to know that we've got someone there with that confidence and willing to do that and have a different bit of a creative spot that we don't have across the front line a lot of times. But yeah, definitely just the decision making to work on. But that comes with age. He's still very, very young.
100%. And to be honest, it's one of those, I quite like him making mistakes. Obviously, it's a bit of a painful process to go through when the margins are so tight. But Arsene Wenger used to talk about this all the time. Like with youngsters, you need to be able to encourage them and live with their mistakes. And it's going to cost you as a team, but long term, it's the best for their development. Unfortunately, we may be without him. So Arteta's quotes on him were really bad news because I think we've lost him. We had to take him off at halftime with some muscular issues. And I'm not going to lie, during the game, I thought he was subbed purely performance-wise, because even though he got his goal, I think, we were losing the ball a bit with him, which again, it's not a criticism. He's 17. It was just, I thought maybe it would have been tactical, but maybe it was just injury.
I had presumed it was the booking, that they just took him off and didn't want to.
And that,
suspension. So yeah, it was a surprise when his interview came out that he was injured. It's just another right wing option we're without. So
I know, and well, it will lead into later on when we're talking about what we think the lineup will be on Tuesday before the Newcastle game. But we'll look at the stats from the game in a minute. But before we do, I think it will be interesting to see kind of what we both thought about the game and how it panned out. But I think one of the things I want to mention before we get into that is the units, right? Like Arteta speaks so much about units and familiarity and stuff. And like you look at Partey, Rice, Nwaneri, like would they have ever played together as a trio on the right hand side? Like, probably not even in training. I think Calafiori, Marino, Trossard, fair enough, they've done that. Jesus ties that in nicely. I thought Jorginho had a really poor game. Thought he was completely pressed out of it. Yeah, really poor from him. But yeah, I think it's that right hand side unit I want to kind of keep in mind, because I think there were quite a few unfamiliar relationships in the team, and I think it showed like when you kind of look at the stats as well. So this is from Mark's StatsBot. So according to his model, the expected goals was 1.74 to Brighton, 1.71 to us. Obviously, that a lot of that is Brighton's pen, but the threat was fairly even. They had one, we had 1.34. Possession fairly even, 44.8 to 55.2. Field tilt was interesting, 40.8 they had, 49.2 we did. And there's another graphic I want to look at, which I think perfectly illustrates the kind of lack of control from Arsenal in this game. So this is a graphic from Scott Willis at cannonstats.com. And it just shows the kind of variance in field tilt where you can just see periods of 15 to 20 minutes where it swings. It's in Arsenal's favor. Sorry, it's in Brighton's favor. It's in Arsenal's favor. It's in Brighton's. It's in Arsenal. And it literally just swings in 15, 20-minute periods. And I think that illustrates so many things, but it's a theme, I think, recently. Like, I know we got the win against Brentford, but that first half, I thought we were poor. And then it was like a period of 5-10 minutes of, fair enough, better performance, but just clinicalness in the second half. The Ipswich game, there were concerns there. So I don't know. What was your kind of verdict from this game if you had to summarize?
Oh, well, I think the first half I thought we did quite well. I was surprised by how we played in the first half. I was expecting Brighton to have a lot more of the ball, especially after we went 1-up. I thought Rice did quite well leading the press, which Odegaard usually did. But it was just the second half. I just don't know. Obviously, once Ethan went off, I think we just didn't have any answer for what Brighton were doing. I didn't feel like they were going to score until the penalty, but I also didn't think that we were ever going to get another shot on goal throughout the second half. It just didn't feel like there was anything there. It just felt like we're playing a defensive line back across the whole defence, just like we had a full defensive lineup out. I don't want to say I felt like we're holding on for a 1-0 because I don't think we're playing that way, but I would have took the 1-0 after about 60 minutes.
I kind of know what you mean, like we go 1-0 up and I'm thinking, fine, because I think we're such a team that is dominated by game state. I was like, okay, we got the 1-0, we can go and make this 2-3. And there were periods in the first half that, despite the concerns, there were encouragement for me, like the space for Nwaneri's goal. Can't really remember clear-cut chances right now off the top of my head, but it was more, I remember the feeling of, this is fine. But then it felt like we got the goal. And I'll say it. I know you said you don't want to say it because of how we played, but I felt like we were holding on for the 1-0. I didn't really get that sense of we're going to go and get a clear chance from open play. Like, the chances I remember were like, again, smart set pieces. Marino could have done better. I think that was second half maybe, but I didn't get that feeling we were going to go on and get a goal at all, to be honest. And I think this is the thing with, like, have we been hard done by with some of the goals we concede and the penalties? And sure, probably. And like, yeah, I don't think that's a penalty. Like, at the time, I said there's no way on hell on earth that's a pen. But like, having watched it again, reflected on it this morning, I still don't think it's a penalty. But there's a small percentage of me that can kind of understand in a weird way why it's given. But I don't want to almost reflect on that because I don't think we deserved a win in this game with what we put up. And I think that's my concern. The way we play right now, we leave ourselves susceptible to variance. Sure, we're great at nullifying teams to low probability goal scoring chances, but it's football. Shit happens. We're not scoring enough to completely reduce the variance that we open ourselves up against. So I was really, really pissed off with how we managed the game after 1-0, to be honest. And I'm sure I saw a stat. We had 9 shots, which I think maybe are lowest in the league this season. So yeah, concern for me there. I think my question for you is though, like, what do you think that is about? Because I've spoken about the domino effects. We've spoken about the lack of availability. We didn't have our captain there, Odegaard. We don't have Saka. But do you think with the 11 that was on the pitch, we should have done better? Or do you think that is the real level of the 11 that was on the pitch versus the opposition we were up against?
I think you touched on it earlier. You said there was just a lack of creativity in the middle. It felt like in the second half, I think the only times I felt we were breaking or getting through Brighton's press was when Ria was going long and Martinelli was running onto the ball and breaking through. I was like, I'm sitting thinking now, and I can't think of any times we played our normal football and got any sort of chance across in the second half. In the first half, obviously we did, other than Ria putting it long and Martinelli trying to break through with his pace. And for us to be at that point with our injuries, to have no creativity and completely bypassing our midfield, obviously it's disappointing that we just don't have another answer within the squad to try and pick it up. I mean, even Odegaard was on the pitch in the second half, and
He was
still
miles
just
off.
felt like it just felt like it wasn't there.
You could tell. Basically, everything felt like it made sense with the illness, right? Like he looked like someone that has not slept. Like he, a couple bad touches, couple misplaced passes. It wasn't great from him. But this is the thing. Like I'm someone that, again, I think I always like to remember what was my honest opinion in the summer versus now. And like in the summer, I didn't feel like selling Smith Rowe and loaning Fabio Vieira was a mistake, and I still don't think selling Smith Rowe was a mistake. But I'm starting to question whether loaning Fabio Vieira was. And again, it might be hindsight, but it's like he's not playing at Porto, and just an extra body with how congested things are. Like you can't plan for like Saka getting injured and stuff. But I still think he would have maybe contributed more minutes, even in the Carabao Cup and games like this. But I don't know if that's pure hindsight and revisionism. The Smith Rowe one, the reason I don't think that's a mistake is I don't think he's at the level, sadly. I don't think he's... No. I think he had periods at Fulham where he's done all right, but I think it was best for his career for him to play regularly. Vieira, it's more like I still look at him as an asset we own. So has that loan done him any better? I'm not sure. What about you?
There was rumours starting up this week that Arsenal will potentially be calling him back from his loan. So could be one to still look out for. But yeah, it's just we definitely have a creativity issue in the middle, and it's definitely been exasperated by obviously Odegaard being injured and then coming back, and he's just not found the same form from before that injury. Obviously, he's had a new baby, and we can't say that he's just not sleeping, and that's why, because you would expect obviously to have a lot of support. But yeah, just feel like there's no fast resolution to the problems we're facing in the middle. There was times in the first half where it looked like Brighton also thought we didn't have really much of an answer and creativity wise, and they were actually given that space to play, and it was so we're able to play some fast, expansive football that I've not seen us be able to do properly for a couple of seasons. But as soon as Ethan started having a few runs at Stupinan at left back, they resorted back to a mid block and didn't give us that space. So yeah, it just feels like we need to find a solution, and obviously if we're going to do it this month, it's going to be very, very expensive. So I just hope there is something that Arteta can find within the squad to help fix those issues.
Yeah, it's interesting looking at, again, it might be revisionism, but just Marino as the profile of midfielder we got in, I still think he'll be a fine option, but is he the missing piece in that starting 11 to go and make us title challenges? I'm not sure. Right now I'm getting more of a vibe of like squad rotational option, and I do look at his profile and think like, was he actually what we needed? Because creativity wise, I think we've got a lot of like power and real functional players, but do we have any kind of individual flair and spark and wizardry? I don't know. And yeah, a lot of this is quite hindsighty potentially, but that's kind of where my head is at right now. Calafiori, he's someone I want to speak about. He's I think he's struggling at the minute. Again, he's someone that I think he'll be good. I think he'll come good. I think he's had quite a disjointed introduction and integration to the team because of his own injuries, but right now I'd say he's not looking amazing. What's your verdict on him at the minute?
No, I think you said it on Planet FPL right at the start of the season. He's one of them players which gets you excited because he'll look fantastic going forward, but then he has a few of these bozo moments. You just think, what's his going on? But I think he definitely looks worse when we're playing bad, because obviously then you'd see in every issue in the squad. You don't have all the positive vibes around the team. We've just scored a few goals, so you can kind of shove the issues to one side because obviously everything's going well. So yeah, when we're bad, obviously Calafiori's issues come out, but a lot of he's the third youngest player in the squad after MLS and Ethan as well.
Is he
So
actually? Oh wow.
yeah, so again, someone obviously will probably just have to give a bit of time. It's his first season in the Premier League. He's very young, and obviously the start of his career was being affected by injuries. So yeah, and he probably wasn't expected. You'd have hoped he would, but probably not expected to play as many minutes as what he has done so far. The season probably should have been solely integrated, but injuries have kind of propelled him into much more of a starter role than probably we wanted.
Yeah, probably. One player that I want to touch on, he's not going through the best patch of form at the minute, but a nice milestone for him was Gabriel Martinelli. Apparently, it was his 200th appearance for the club, and yeah, he's someone that he's struggling, and we've all got opinions on is he good enough, but I think that is a nice milestone to just recognise because he has played a significant part in getting us to the point where we are. And I just wanted to kind of recognize that, like, whether we move beyond him in the summer is another thing. I personally would like to keep him around the squad, have him as more of a squad rotational option, use him like how Liverpool use a Jota, Gakpo, just rotate him in and out. I don't think he's at the level to be starting at 70, 80% of the games for where we want to be, but I just thought that was a nice milestone. And the other positive, dare I say, from a bit of a shit game was it was good to see Rice kind of just performing and looking fit again. I think he looked like he was flagging towards the end as he was tracking back, but he's obviously struggled with his fitness injuries, his fitness this season, his toe injury. So I think he'll be a big player for us in the second half of the season. But the final kind of tactical thing I want to talk on this game before we turn our attention to Newcastle was it's another game where I think we struggled to kind of maintain possession momentum where Partey wasn't in the centre.
Yeah, I was hoping you'd touch onto this. It'd be interesting to see not so much our win percentages, but our performances with Partey at right back compared to Partey at the six. I think you can definitely tell Arteta wants him in the team and doesn't want to miss out on his qualities, but you lose them anyways when he's at right back. And obviously, would you play Calafiori at right back just to keep Partey in the middle, or have Partey, or does that speak volumes for how much Arteta trusts?
I don't know. Like I feel like I'm on my own with this one because I just don't think we have another choice at the minute. Just with Timber being suspended for this game, Tomiyasu and White both being out, I like the whole. In my opinion, the whole Calafiori MLS at right back thing feels proper FIFA, and just like in reality, I think it would get massacred. I think it's okay. I can't explain why to you this is, but it is okay when you play a right footer at left back. Like there's just something about the angles where it's more manageable. It just doesn't work when you play a left-footed player at right back. Like you can do it in the wide forward areas, but defending, I can't explain why that is. I've actually started coaching recently, so I'm hoping I'll learn that as I kind of continue on my journey. But like, there's just something about that where I can't tell you a single time I recall a left-footed player playing at right back and it's succeeding. It's just something that doesn't happen. So I've seen a lot of people calling for that. Just in my own head, I just think that's a no-go. So I don't even think it's Arteta not wanting to lose Partey or trusting what he has. I just think it's the fourth choice solution we have there, and we don't look like we have a fifth. To the point where if Partey was then injured, it would be interesting to see what he was to do there. I don't know. It's pure speculation, but it's quite interesting to get an insight into the idea of like what we think Arteta would do. Like, would he go for an academy player like Nichols? Would he go and do the MLS Calafiori or Akivio there? I don't know, but to me, it's just as simple as I just think it's the fourth choice that we've got there, and I even agree that I think Partey at right back, despite what we lose from him at the six, is better than putting an MLS or a Calafiori there personally. But yeah, that's kind of where I'm at on that. Is there anything more you want to touch on from the game before we turn our attention to Tuesday?
Probably the only thing that's been going through my head the past few days is I just wish we'd stop with getting these stupid yellow cards for time wasting.
I'm glad you said that. I forgot about that.
Yeah, so it feels like because Timber's got, I can think of two he's got just from getting booked for the throw-ins, and obviously Ethan got one on yesterday as well. It's just a case of it's not helping us with the issues we're having. Then having another player out suspended, or then having to take a player off because he could potentially get a red card for a second yellow card. It's just, I understand why we slow the game down from our set pieces and our throw-ins, but at some point we need to be like, come on, right, we just need to get this into play and not take these tallying up. It's we're already in a position where we need to keep as many players in the team as possible. Let's not lose another one for a stupid reason.
I completely agree. And I'm so glad you brought that up because, it's something that skipped my mind. Like, it is ridiculous. I understand the element of, like you said, slowing the game down and also getting the instructions across, right? They clearly have very detailed plans, but you need to be a bit more streetwise about how you implement these things. You can tell the referees, the fans are starting to kind of get agitated by it, and the referees are human. Like, they are going to be influenced by the crowd and bring that kind of element of urgency into their consciousness. So I think we need to be a bit more street smart with that. I completely agree with you. It feels stupid. Like, Timber was against Palace, against Brentford, and now, like you said, we kind of lost him as a result yesterday, which I think was costly. I think if we had Timber at right back, we're able to play Partey in the sixth, maybe we're looking at a different game. And sure, it may have just papered over some cracks, but sometimes that's what you need to do to be able to get through. So yeah, good point by you on that. It's something that we definitely need to be a bit wiser to, because I think fans are going to play up to it, and it's going to affect the referees' patience with us now. And to be even myself as a fan of this club, like, sit there, I'm like, fucking get on with it. Sometimes it does feel a bit much, and I don't know, like the time wasting and slowing it down. It does feel a bit tin pot at times. I'll be honest.
Yeah, you get like even just how slow Saka walks to take his corner and stuff like that. You can see it's obviously it's to get into it's the start of the mind games for our set pieces. It's the right, unsettle the defense, make them agitated that we're taking some time, get set and then go. But yesterday for Ethan's booking, like Gabriel went over to give him the instructions, the team got set, and then it just felt like, why are we now delaying this another 15 seconds? What are you possibly waiting for? It's just and then he gets booked. It's just like, come on, we've just lost Timber. We're in a position where we were 1-0 up at that point, but it was just like Timber would have been probably that extra bit of creativity we needed in the middle when he's inverting, just to help us have a bit more control on the game, and was another cog we just couldn't afford to lose, especially and then obviously the illnesses hit, and it was just like all those little dominoes, and some of them are just very self-inflicted at times. And it'll not be long until they start booking the goalkeepers a bit more regularly for it. And I can guarantee David Rhea will be the first keeper sent off for 2 bookings for time wasting. So it's coming.
Probably. I actually thought Ethan was going to get a second yellow within that same sequence, because he kind of took another few seconds after he got the booking. One thing I know, I said we'll move on to Newcastle in a bit, but Conscious, I didn't get your opinion on the penalty. I kind of gave mine, but yeah, what's your take on that incident?
So I understand the absolute outrage by the Arsenal fans, but for me, I would have been shouting for it up the other side of the pitch, the same way we did with obviously.
I rate the honesty.
Same way we did with Gabriel, obviously getting punched in the head by the Chelsea goalkeeper. I would have been screaming for that. To me, there's no difference coming together of heads after obviously being late to the ball than there would be kicking out and obviously missing the ball and taking the player down. Obviously, last season we gave away a penalty to Tottenham when Rice was late on. I can't remember who was left back, Davies, Mebbies. And that was a penalty. So just because it's a different part of the body, to me, it doesn't make it different. I don't think we'll see it again. We didn't see it in the Spurs Newcastle game when Gordon got hit in the face. That was ruled coming together. So it was very soft, but I can understand why, to the letter of the law, it was given.
Fair play. We've lost a subscriber as a result. Mike Alpin unsubscribed, and I'll use that to do the usual plugs. Just shout out Francis and Joku's comment. He says he prefers Arteta to use any of the youth players rather than playing Martinelli. So shout out Gabby Martinelli for your 200th appearance. There's your credit. Yeah, if you are still with us at the minute and we haven't lost you, please consider dropping a like on the stream. It goes a long way to supporting us. Subscribe to the channel if you're new around here. We always do weekly reviews, previews, ad hoc solos when we have like domestic or European games midweek as well. Yeah, fan-led channel, like to think we're not too controversial. Just say it as it is on here. And if you feel like this may be your space to mourn the title, then yeah, consider subscribing. And if you're listening on audio, please give it a 5-star review. Attention turns to Tuesday, the Carabao Cup, or EFL Cup as it's actually formally called. We got Newcastle, and fuck me, talk about a team in form. So they have won their last 6 matches, and there's obviously been, I say obviously, not everyone would be aware of this. I certainly wasn't until it was pointed out to me. So their last game they lost was against Brentford 4-2 away from home. And then they tweaked something in their midfield where they played Tonali as the 6 and they beat Leicester 4-0. And that started the run. They then beat Brentford 3-1. They battered Ipswich 4-0 away from home. Back-to-back clean sheets, beating Aston Villa 3-0, then United 2-0 away from home. They beat Tottenham yesterday 2-1 away from home. So they've won 6 in a row since they made that tweak. We're actually unbeaten in 13, which it doesn't feel like, I think, considering some of the performances and the draws. But before we get into this and like what we think the team will be, what to expect tactically, you obviously live in Newcastle. What's the kind of vibe up there at the minute and the importance for them?
So when I've been having conversations at work and stuff, obviously we've been chatting about how we think the game will go. All of last week, I was saying, I think over the 2 legs, Newcastle will win because we'll have to rotate to focus on the league and the Champions League. After yesterday's result, I think we have to go strong now in both of these games against Newcastle. We just need to get a trophy now, and obviously this was the one I thought would be willing to sacrifice. The Newcastle fans, everyone that I've spoke to is very much, if they can keep it to within 1 on Tuesday, they are very confident they'll get through after the home leg, because they think we absolutely hate travelling up to St James's and can't see us getting anything from that game. So
what's your take on that? So like the hypothesis, if they keep it to 1, then they think they'll beat us in the second leg. What do you feel about that? Because I'm not going to lie, I agree with them.
I absolutely agree as well. So I think we have to go, everyone that's fit on Tuesday has to play on Tuesday, and we've got to beat these by 2 or 3 so we can go up there and possibly scrape through with a loss, but still get through to the final, because I do think on current form and on obviously just current first 11s of fit players, they are the stronger team, and they will keep it physical. And obviously we know just how Newcastle can get under the skin of Arsenal. They've done it every time we've played over the past 2-3 years. So yeah, it's out of the 3 teams that we could have drawn, it was probably the ones I was least looking forward to.
Yeah, I'm in agreement. And it's funny, it's the fucking timing of when you play teams, isn't it? Like prior to that kind of tweak and how they would do, like prior to that, they lost to Brentford. That was the last loss they had, right? They drew against Liverpool, fair enough, good result. They drew away at Palace. They lost to flipping West Ham. They lost to West Ham. Like the timing of,
as well.
2-0 that was. Like the timing of when you play teams is always interesting, and I feel like we are literally playing them at the worst time. I agree with you. I think right now, with the availability, freshness of the squads, they are the stronger team. And I'm not going to lie, I don't see us winning the first leg by more than a goal if we do win. And I think we'll get overwhelmed and just overwhelmed in the second leg. So like going into this tie, over 2 legs, I don't see us making it, I don't see us getting to the final, if I'm being completely honest with myself. And I hope that the team, because this Arsenal team has continuously surprised me, where I've been kind of down in the dumps, feeling a bit down about our prospects in certain times, and they'll surprise me with a performance. I felt that way going into the Liverpool game. I can't remember who we had either side of that game, but I remember going into that game thinking, I don't feel great about this one. And then they pulled out that first half and I was like, wow, like we are levels. And then the second half petered out the way it did because of Gabriel Timber going off. So I hope there's an element of the team surprising us and putting in a performance, but I don't feel confident. In terms of importance, so Mike's got a question here. Do you think the Newcastle game is more important in terms of squad rotation rather than the FA Cup game? What do you think?
So for me, I think this is a fantastic time to play Man U, and probably a game where we don't need to be, I'm absolutely jinxing us here and I should not be saying this. We don't need to be at 100% at the moment to beat the Man U. That's their strongest 11. So I would expect that this game against Newcastle is probably the one where we need to play the stronger 11, with some players getting rested against Man U. I would much prefer winning the FA Cup, but it's just getting that trophy on the board, getting to that final, I think might be the thing we just really need, just to galvanise the squad and give us something to look forward to going into the second half of the season, really.
Yeah, for me, I agree on the point around Man United, and there's definitely not going to come back to bite us at all. But I also think, like with the Carabao Cup, let's be real. Like, okay, I'm not going to speak for everyone. For myself, I did not give a flying fuck about this competition until we got to the semi-final. After we beat Palace, I was like, oh, we're 2 wins away from a final now. Like, and it was only as we got that close that I started to care. And I think now it's gone up in importance in my head because of the league being done in my head as well. And also, like I've said, like I don't think we've got that threat to go and win the Champions League. So now I'm like, okay, we are closer to the final of the Carabao Cup than we are to the final of the FA Cup. So as a result, do what we did in the FA Cup in the early rounds of the Carabao Cup. Treat that with rotation. See if you can get through to certain rounds and then assess it the closer you get. I think the squad rotation, in my opinion, for the quarterfinal against Palace was spot on. Like, he got the level of rotation bang on in terms of the starting 11 and then how he powered up the squad from the 11 from the bench. I think we've now arrived where I think he's going to go full strength with what we've got available and then look to treat the FA Cup third round against Man United how we did the early rounds of the Carabao. So for me, it's absolutely a case of like, yeah, just go on and try and get this trophy. So yeah, we'll go for it. Go for it.
As well as do Man U even play their strongest 11 in the FA Cup? I know it's obviously a bit of banter saying they're in a relegation fight, but they're only 5-6 points clear of Ipswich and Leicester. So do they risk playing a full starting 11 against us in the cup, or just accept that actually they need to focus on?
I think they will. I think they will.
Yeah.
Like all jokes aside, I don't think they'll be in any danger of a relegation battle. But I think the reason I think they'll go full strength is because they're so far down, but they'll be fine. They've got nothing to play for in the league. This league campaign for them is a case of you get to the end of the season and recalibrate and like re-strategize. I think they'll go all out for it in the FA Cup. But I'm just of the like, we play on Tuesday, right? We've got Tuesday till Sunday. And then granted, we've got the North London derby next midweek, but you can be smart with how you rotate, recover people in this period. And I think we'll be able to go full strength against Newcastle, Man United and Tottenham with some smart use of minutes in the Man United game. But yeah, Newcastle's an interesting one looking at their team. So, I mean, is Bruno Guimaraes suspended? I'm sure I read that somewhere, but I may have that wrong.
Would be news to me.
Yeah, I may have that wrong. So, yeah, I think Bobby's on that having a look. But yeah, the team that played against Tottenham.
Yeah, Bruno Guimaraes and Fabian Schär will miss the first leg of the semi-final. So that's positive news, at least. That's probably two very important players to their spine. So
big time. And Botman actually went off injured against Tottenham. I'm not sure what the severity of that is, but if Schär's out, if Botman is then injured, that's obviously good news in terms of their defensive prospects. I think taking Guimaraes out is obviously great news for us. But I think like Longstaff will come in. He'll be energetic. I assume it'll be Longstaff. It may be someone else, but yeah, he'll be busy. And I think Newcastle's strategy will probably be come and mid-block the shit out of us, which they've done so well in the last few games against us when we've played them. Like you said, what the fans are expecting, try and keep it to 1-0 and then take it to their home in the second leg, where like their fans are great, right? Especially in kind of evening atmospheres when everyone's had a drink. And like there is a bit of a rivalry here for some reason.
There is now, yeah. Ever since obviously that 2-0 win, that stopped us getting top four. I think they've always felt we've got their number now.
We were both at that game next to each other.
Yeah, that was the first game we were at together. Yeah, so that was that was after a bad run of games as well. It was just kind of wrapped it up going in Spurs' favour. So yeah, I think ever since then they felt like, right, we've got Arsenal's number now. We can get under this skin. And there's just always been that if I was at home, would always rile up the other one, and the fans definitely the extra factor in all of our games since probably how it took over. Actually, yeah.
Yeah, 100%. Yeah, that there will be an element of needle from them in that second leg. Like they will be so up for that. It will almost feel like a cup final in that second leg, especially if the tie is in balance and it's not being completely done in the first leg. So I think Tuesday is really fucking important. I think it's really important for the narrative to just get this monkey off our back to try and go and get a trophy, just because I think if we finish the season with no league title, no Champions League and no domestic cups, there will be pitchforks out. And I know where my head is at, but I'm not willing to have that conversation yet. I'll deal with that in May, but there will be pitchforks out. So I think in terms of just quietening the noise and trying to keep our group intact, and I say our group as supporters as well as players, I think it's important we go and get this cup. So yeah, lineup wise, what do you think we'll go with? Do you think let me just find the predicted lineups. I can't find that, so let's just wing it and go for it ourselves. Party, do you assume we'll go back to the middle? Timber will come back?
Yeah, Timber straight back in, yeah. So Party back in the middle. Interestingly, I did find the stat with games at Party right back. We've only won 1 out of 5, so that does obviously explain, well, it shows he's important to being in the middle and where we need him. So yeah, I think Timber straight back in, Party back in the 6. Obviously, Odegaard came on, so I would expect he'd be fit enough to start. So Rice, Odegaard, and it'll have to be Martinelli, Trossard, Jesus up front, wouldn't it? There's just no other options.
So who do you think will be left back for this game? Do you think Lewis Skelly comes in, or do you think
Lewis Skelly? Yeah, I think Lewis Skelly comes back in.
Interesting. Why is that?
I just think he's a better defender than Calafiori is currently. Maybe he's not as a collective player, but defensive, what he brings to a defensive lineup, I think he can better handle what
Jacob would be Murphy on the
yeah.
Fair play. So what would could you run the 11 you think it will be from back to front then?
Ria, Timber, Saliba, Gabriel, Lewis Skelly, Party, Rice, Odegaard, Martinelli, Trossard, Jesus. In fact, no. If Havertz is fit, obviously he wasn't in the squad, I would think Havertz comes in for Trossard.
Jesus left?
Jesus left.
Or Martinelli left, Jesus.
I think they'll just rotate around the 3. But yeah, on paper, Jesus left, Havertz up front.
Fair play. Yeah, it's interesting. Like, we don't really have much choice, do we? I think, the left back spot we can rotate. Timber comes straight back in, as you said already. Midfield, I think, picks itself of Party, Rice, Odegaard. The Odegaard one's interesting because, like, although he came on, we both said he looked off it, didn't he? So, like, I mean, Tuesday's not far. I wonder if I feel like we just have to start him, though.
Yeah. he's off it, but he's not a passenger. I think we're still better with Odegaard on the pitch than we are without Odegaard. So he still needs to be there. At the end of the day, we've got no other creative spark, and he is that guy for us. So we'll have to have him in the squad if he's fit enough.
Oh yeah, definitely. It's just more, I guess, concerns from me on, like, is he actually at a level where he can perform? But I agree. I think if he says, I'm in the squad, he'll be in the 11. Havertz is an interesting one. The fact that he wasn't in the squad at all yesterday makes me a bit concerned, because I think Arteta said in his presser, like, Havertz was honest. He said, boss, I can't travel at all. So, like, I don't know, timeline wise, I'm thinking if it was Saturday, he couldn't travel at all, is he going to be fit enough by Tuesday evening? Probably not. I reckon sub appearance. So my predicted 11 will be what you said prior to Havertz. So Raya, Timber, Saliba, Gabriel. I think Calafiori will keep this one. I don't disagree with what you said on the reasoning for Miles Lewis Skelly. I just think Arteta may keep Calafiori as the more senior option for this game, and then give Lewis Skelly the FA Cup. So I think Calafiori keeps the shirt for this. I think the midfield 3 will be the same as you: Party, Rice, Odegaard, and then front 3. I'm working on the assumption I don't think Havertz will be quite fit enough to start the game. So no real options with Nwaneri looking injured. So Martinelli, Jesus, Trossard, I think it is. Score prediction and how you think the game will go.
I think we win 2-1. I think we go 1 up, which I think that was the issue when we played them at their stadium in October, was that they got the first goal, so could sit in and play their game and just mid-block the fuck out of us. But I think we go 1 up at home, which makes them have to come out and play, which means we get another one, and I think they just grab back a consolation goal just to try and keep their hopes alive. I hope they don't, but I do think it stays a very close game.
And a 2-1 scoreline full time, let's just say it is that. How are you feeling taking that into the second leg?
1-0. They win 1-0 at their own place. So is there extra time in the League Cup now? There isn't, is
I don't
there?
know,
So
actually. I don't know if it just goes straight to pens or if there is extra time. Not sure.
I can't remember. But yeah, so I think I absolutely think they win at home, and I think we just need to make sure we do enough at home to either get that through to extra time and penalties, or to win it enough on paper in the home game that we'll have a lot less to worry about when we travel up there in February.
So this is a game where, ignoring form, momentum, and just looking at the two teams in isolation, I really back this Arsenal team to pull something out of their arse in this game. And like I said, like prior to that Liverpool game, I was feeling a bit concerned about us, and they just pulled out a stellar first half performance. And I think they've got them in. I think they've got that in them for this. I think Timber coming back, being at right back, Partey going back to the midfield, like the midfield of Partey, Rice, Odegaard, I think is our first choice midfield. Can Martinelli cause issues from the right wing in this game? I hope so. Like, Hall's obviously done quite well this season, but Trossard, Jesus, it's going to require big performances from them. Like, we're going to need Trossard to be more engaged throughout the game rather than just deliver his moments, which he's not really been delivering. Jesus against mid-blocks, I actually think is quite helpful. I think it can cause that element of confusion and unpredictability, provided he is the one that starts. And yeah, I don't know when did we play them at home? It was in February, weren't it? And we absolutely battered them. And again, it was like it was so different to the team we're going to be coming up against on Tuesday. But like we played them off the park, and that first half felt like we suffocated them. But I'd be silly to ignore the form they're in. And I think I spoke about when I started that kind of long sentence, ignoring form. I feel like I would say 2-3-0 if I was just ignoring form, looking in isolation at the matchups. But I feel like the position we're arriving in, the way they're arriving, I can only see us edging it. So I've got 2-1 as well. I wanted to say 2-0, but I just don't see us entirely shutting them out. I think we'll have periods in this game where we surprise ourselves with how kind of dominant and powerful we look. I've just got that feeling that we will resurface with that kind of ideal back five and midfield three, but I think we'll still look a little bit void of ideas in the final third. So I've got 2-1, but if I'm being honest, I would not be surprised if it's a score draw in this, which, taking into the second leg, don't feel great, but I think it's one game at a time. Let's see what we can do our best in this one, try and get a 2-0 buffer minimum, and then let's see how we arrive in the second leg. Do we have people more fit, available, fresh to try and get to the final? But we'll leave it there. Is there anything else you wanted to kind of discuss or chat about before we get out of here?
I think we've let it all out, haven't we? We've released all the demons we're feeling.
I think so, yeah. This was very therapeutic. I hope you found it as well. And listener, if you're still with us, I hope you found it therapeutic as well. I think in times like this, you're not going to agree with everything, but that's not the point of it, right? It's football. We're never going to agree on everything we all say, but it's important to feel like you're in a space where you can have your voice heard and certain opinions resonate with yourself. So we hope you've kind of enjoyed this episode. Final shout out before we get out of here. Uncle Mike's gone 2-1 to the Arsenal as well. So fingers crossed we're all correct with that. I'd say fingers crossed we're all wrong, and let's hope we get a bigger margin, because I think we're
2 player goals, please.
Yes, por favor. Thanks a lot everyone for tuning in. I'll be back on Friday to review the Newcastle game and preview the Man United game. And start of a big week. We both said we kind of need to win one of these domestic cups, so fingers crossed. If you've enjoyed it, please drop the stream a like. It goes a long way to helping us, as I said already. Subscribe to the channel so you don't miss when we go live, and if you're listening on podcast, please give it a 5-star review. Bobby, where can the people find you on the socials?
At Bobby Love FPL on Twitter.
Lovely stuff. Cheers everyone. Up the Arsenal.
The Arsenal.